Welcome to Call of the Father. This will be episode 9. I gotta say, one of the hard things to do is get into my heart space to do these messages or these episodes, and it's pretty important because I want to deliver something to you that'll be valuable and that you can feel. I want it to feel authentic, raw, and I just want you to be able to feel it if you've been following along. So today, it was hard to get there this week. I've got some other things going on in life, like it's not a big deal, but my job's ending. I've been there 7 years and I'm having to look for a new job. It was a contract, so it's not a big deal, but I've had to do some interviews and it's kind of cut into my time on my weekends to record. So last night I was just whooped. I had an interview yesterday and I laid down. I knew I needed to record, but I was like, man, I'm just tired. I need to go to bed. And then I woke up this morning and I knew that I'd probably do it today, and I'd be posting it a little later than I intended to. And I still didn't know how I was going to get in that heart space. I knew what I wanted to talk about, which is shame, instilling shame in our kids. And I was kind of still putting the thoughts together in my head. And then anyway, I woke up this morning and I got a text message from a very, very dear friend. And oh my God, did it just hit home. And it had to do with what I want to talk about today. And it got me all emotional, man. It just got me in that heart space. My friend, I'm just going to call him Johnny T. We wrestled together years ago, and from the moment we met, like, we just shared a bond. Like, he is an authentic dude, and I know I felt something in my heart toward him. Like, in my mind, in my heart, he was the one. Like, he's the one that was authentic and real, and he got me, and I got him. And there's been years in between where at one point I lost contact with him and didn't see him for 15 years or talk to him. And then one day I'm at a wrestling tournament for one of my kids, and all of a sudden somebody just wraps me up from behind, and I'm like, what the heck? And just squeezes me, and I turn around and it's Johnny T, and I'm like, oh my God. Like, I just felt so much joy in my heart to see him, and he's that kind of friend. And I think that we've had the kind of bond that we have because there's just no denying the energy and what we feel. It has to do with what we've gone through growing up. There's just something that really resonates with us, and he went through something very similar. There's a little difference, but I'm going to read this story that he sent to me, and then I'm going to go into what this kind of meant to me. And I'm sorry, I'm probably going to cry. I'm going to do my best, but I'm not going to edit it out. This is real. Anyway, so he sent me this story. Grab my glasses. He sent me this story this morning, and I read it immediately, and then I was crying, and I just called him. And we talked for a bit, and I was like, hey, bud, can I use this? And he gave me permission to read this. It just ties so perfectly into this. This is called Still Worth Something. Still Worth Something by JT. He kind of wrote this for his kids, and I'm going through some things that are very similar. I've been going through some things with my daughter where I've been there for her, but it's funny how these lessons, they pop up in different ways, and I haven't been what my dad was to me for her. Well, I'll interview her at some point, but okay, here goes. Still Worth Something by Johnny T. It was supposed to be one of the proudest days of my life. One of the most important wrestling tournaments I had ever fought for. I had given everything, my body, my soul, my innocence. Every drop of sweat and every torn muscle fiber was a silent scream to be seen. to matter, to be enough. And more than any medal or applause or win, I just wanted one person there, my dad. Since freshman year, I begged him to come watch me. Begged, not like a boy asking a favor, but like a child starving for something that never came. I'd scan the bleachers with a lump in my throat, pretending not to care, hoping no one noticed how empty I felt inside. Hoping maybe this time he'd show up, hoping he'd be proud. He rarely came, and when he did, it felt like my desperation was some kind of entertainment to him, like he wanted me to earn his love and I never could. But this one time, he came. He stood there right next to the mat, closer than he'd ever been. And I let myself believe maybe, just maybe, this would be the moment I had waited years for. And then I lost. Not just lost, I fell to a kid I had already beaten before, a massive upset. I was the number one ranked wrestler, and in one moment, I wasn't. I remember standing there on the edge of the mat, chest caved in, everything inside of me screaming for just a single hand on my shoulder, just one voice telling me I was still worth something. I turned to my father with wet eyes, trembling, searching, begging for comfort. He looked at me and said with disgust in his voice, "Is that what you wanted me to come for? To watch you lose? I should have never come." In that moment, I stopped being a kid. Something broke in me that day that's never quite healed. It didn't just hurt, it hollowed me out. And for almost 50 years now, I've carried that emptiness like a shadow that never goes away. That sentence echoes in every quiet room I've ever been in since. But somehow, from that unbearable silence, something grew. Rage, hunger, drive. I pushed myself past every physical and emotional limit. I refused to be defined by that one moment. I clawed my way onto the national stage. I became an All-American. I wrestled at a world-class level because I had to, because no one else was going to tell me I mattered. I had to find that worth myself. But the truth is, even after everything, even after all the medals and the accolades, a part of me is still that awkward, broken 17-year-old boy, staring into his father's eyes, wishing he had said anything else. Wishing someone had just told him, "You are still worth something." Now I have children of my own, wrestlers. Strong, fierce, gifted. They are rising through the same trenches I once crawled through, and every single time they step on that mat, I'm there. Not just in body, but with my whole heart. Because they will never feel what I felt. They will never have to look for my face in the crowd and wonder if I care. They will never cry alone in a locker room, thinking that their failure made them unlovable. Every struggle I endured, every heartbreak I swallowed, every lonely victory and bitter defeat, I went through all of it so they wouldn't have to. So they could be everything I was never allowed to be. So they could know in wrestling and in life that no loss will ever define them. And no matter what happens out there, win or lose, they will always be worth everything. And I will always be proud. Man, sorry for the tears. This just hits me hard. I met Johnny T when we were wrestling at that world class level. We were world class athletes, and we were there. Like, we were on the big stage, and we were at a level where neither one of us won world or Olympic medals. And I bet I'm going to get into this with him, but I'm pretty sure we probably both self-sabotaged. I know he was one that believed in me, and people said things to me along the way that, man, like they really believed I was about to pop and nobody would stop me. but I didn't really believe it myself. Or I kind of think that the self-sabotage for me was a matter of I'd already been through all of this that he just described, the the hurt of not being enough, win or lose. And I think that I knew even if I won, it wasn't going to kill the pain. It wasn't going to make me feel like enough, because I'd won some things that felt that way. It felt like if I win this, I'm going to feel like enough, and it never did. It just didn't do that. So I believe in the end I didn't want to win the big one subconsciously, because I knew it wouldn't kill the pain, and I was fighting for something. So the difference with my story, my dad was there, but it's very similar in a subtle way. It's very similar. My dad was there a lot, and as I look back, it took years for me to realize he wasn't really there for me. He was there for him, how it'd make him feel, how it'd make him look if I won. And in the beginning, he never saw any of the matches that I lost. When I was in middle school is where I started. He never saw, or he saw, I'm sorry, I said that wrong. He saw every match that I lost, and he never saw me win a match in middle school. I don't know how that worked out. It just worked out that way. But then in high school, I started to get pretty good. And in the beginning, it felt like he's just kind of pushing me to just do it even though I wasn't good. But then as I started to get good, it really started to, I didn't see it that well, but it felt, in the end, it all cropped up. That it was about him. And a very similar thing happened to me my senior year. It was a big goal to win state in high school, and I did not do that. My senior year, I had an injury a little bit before state, and then I was wrestling through, but I really believe I let it be an excuse in my head a little bit too. And when I didn't win, I was pretty devastated. I'd worked for this for 4 years, and it was maybe the most important thing to me in life at that time. And I really felt, I know inside, I felt like I was going to be enough if I won this. And I didn't win. And it hurt pretty bad. It cut me pretty deep. And then I just remember being in the living room the next day, and my dad and I kind of got into it. I don't know how it started, but I still just remember him saying, "Yeah, you wrestled like shit." And at the time, I was so devastated. Like that tournament was everything that I kind of lived for, I thought, at that point. And I said, "I'd rather be dead than listening to your shit." And then he slapped me in the side of the head. And then I kind of went toward him, and I wrapped him up, and I slammed him on the living room floor. And I remember him yelling, "Ow, my shoulder." And then I ran out of the house, and I didn't come back for hours. And that whole thing was devastating too. I didn't want to hurt my dad, and I thought, but what cropped up there was that it was never about me, and he wasn't there for me when I lost, and he didn't do exactly what Johnny T was looking for from his dad. I wanted to hear, "You know what, I'm really proud of you, and I love you, and that doesn't matter to me. I want you to know you're enough." And more things happened over the years. There was one time that kind of really, as I was leaving the house after my senior year, some things came up, and there was one day that my dad said to me, and it's the echo that I hear, like Johnny T hears that echo. I just remember my dad saying, "I'm ashamed of who you've turned out to be. I'm ashamed of you." And those words really never left my head. And that just perfectly ties into what I wanted to talk about this week. It's about our kids. It's about, there are a lot of programs in our society and things, even so-called experts that on raising kids. And I've confronted some of these ideas in my own head about how to raise kids and so-called experts in psychology. I mean, there's a lot of things, a lot of people that are a mess. So people have drinking problems, and I really believe it comes down to childhood trauma in most cases and shame. And we just cannot be instilling shame in our kids. We need to somehow just be there for them and let them know they matter. And none of this win or lose, none of that matters as much as who they are. I'm very proud of my kids. They just have amazing hearts. And when they go over to other people's houses, I can never remember my kids not just hearing texting with parents and saying thanks for having them over, and they're like, that's a great kid. Like, that's what I always hear. And I want my kids to know that I hear that and that I'm proud of them. One thing that never came up with my dad, this used to really, really just irk me deep down. People would say the same things about me in front of my dad, and he'd eat it up. But then in private, he would never admit that I was a good kid or never tell me he's proud of me. It was about him. He got that attention for me, quote unquote, being a good kid or being whatever they noticed that was praiseworthy. And then as soon as we were out of their company, it was back to, I got to try to earn his approval. And just like Johnny T said, I never could. And that created a lot of shame for me. And I see a lot of people growing up, a lot of kids, and they have that shame. And there's so many subtle messages that we give our kids. It can be such a simple thing, and we don't realize that we're instilling shame in our kids. And that in itself is shameful. It's shame on parents when we instill shame in our kids. I really believe that shame is one of the biggest things that blocks us from blessings in life and achieving what we're meant to achieve or capable of achieving, and including happiness, love vibrations. It just blocks everything. And I hate to say it. No, I don't hate to say it. I see it and I don't hate to say it. But one of the things that I've felt with Christianity is that there's a lot of shame built in so many messages. And I don't believe those were there in original languages and things like that. And I really believe a lot of things have been twisted in the Bible. And whether you believe in Christianity or a different religion or just spirituality, I'm right there with you. I believe in a God, and I believe that even I'll share some things at some point. I found some things from the Old Testament about shame that I've never heard, and it really hit me hard, and it's a big deal. And I'll probably do a different episode on that. I'm not going to share it today. But from what I found, basically, I felt that God was saying this is strictly forbidden to instill shame in your kids. And basically, it's nothing he ever condoned or thought of. And it's in several verses. Anyway, as far as this lesson of not what Johnny T said about not wanting his kids to feel that, I've done the same thing with my kids, and what I've seen still comes up. There's things that we're fighting against in this world, and there's programs and there's lessons to learn. And I was going to interview my daughter, but we kind of discussed maybe we'll do it another day rather than this episode. But she does volleyball and she tries real hard. She works really hard at what she does. I see basically my level of work ethic, what I put into wrestling back then, in her with volleyball, and it's a little different. Nobody could really, if I beat somebody, I was better. I was on a team and I beat somebody else out for varsity, nobody could take that or act like, oh no, this guy's better. It just didn't happen. I was the one. And So there are some differences, but she's felt really overlooked. And while I'm there for her and telling her how I believe in her, and I'm seeing that she's facing the same lesson about self-belief, and what happened is some coaches and teammates, she ended up being a bubble player. She was really sick the day of tryouts for this club, and she ended up being the bubble player. She didn't get picked. She actually had double ear infections that day, and she didn't get picked. And then they called and said, hey, we have one more spot, and we'd like you to be on the team. So they picked her, and then it's just felt like everybody kind of puts her down, doesn't believe in her. Well, it's a similar thing to what I felt with my dad, what Johnny T felt with his dad. And while I'm there for her, she's going through the same kind of thing. She kind of bought into what their opinion is of her and trying to gain their approval by being nice and being this and being that. And man, it's been hard trying to work through this with her. I see her pain. I just love her so much. I don't want to see her hurt, but she has to figure these things out. And we have a lot of good talks. And, in the end, she's learning the same lesson, but at least it's not from her dad. She doesn't have her dad not believing in her. I think that'd be more painful in a lot of ways. And she's going to get through this. And we have good talks. And luckily, I've been through this in the way that I have, and I'm able to kind of give her some pointers and some psychology behind what I dealt with and how I overcame some things. And like I said, I didn't overcome everything. I never overcame the self-sabotage. And I've joked before that someday I'll be able to be in front of God and be like, okay, so what would have happened if this happened and that happened? And maybe he'll show me medals that I didn't get. But, I've heard so many messages. I was there, and people believed in me more than I did, people that were in the circle there. It is what it is. The most important thing is now I'm here with my kids, and I've learned these hard lessons, and I'm healing, and I'm growing, and I'm overcoming that self-doubt and the shame. What Johnny T said about every room he goes in, he hears that echo, he hears that, and he never really got over it. And in a lot of ways, I'm in the same boat, and we're still healing. We'll get there. Anyway, if you got kids, man, question what messages you've received about how to raise kids. There's a lot of times about the messages I believed in at some points were kind of forcing them into submission so that they were compliant. And I just don't believe in that. I just really believe in talking through things with my kids, and I do that a lot, and I give them some leeway, and we discuss things, and man, they're amazing. They're amazing kids. Like I've said before, they're going to have fresh new ideas that I never had, and they're going to do better than I ever did. But it's not going to come by me making them comply with systems and shame. It's going to come by me loving them and believing in them. And so I want them to be able to love themselves and believe in themselves. Thank you for listening. Man, if you've been following along, if you enjoy this, I really hope that you'd share this with someone else. Share this podcast, not just this episode. Ask people to follow if you think it'll help them. And I just hope to help people. That's all. I just hope to help give points that help people grow. Thank you for listening. Have a great week. I'll see you next week.